So hi everyone, it's Elisa Guadan here at the Guadan Law Group, and I've got joined with me today Steve Goodman from Goodman Bail Bonds. He came in and talked with me a little bit. It's been exactly 1 month since LA County instituted their zero bail policy, and we just came in to talk about what's been going on with LA County Bail since the implementation of that zero bail policy. So hi Steve.
Hi.
So thanks for joining me. So really quick, can you tell a little bit about Goodman Bail Bonds and your introduction into the bail bonds business?
Sure. I was an acupuncturist prior to bail, and I got in partially from my patient in 2012, licensed in 2013, and then opened up Goodman Bail Bonds in 2019.
Okay. So you've seen definitely the
big changes.
And since the years you started as a bail bondsman. Let's talk a little bit about what bail used to look like before zero bail policy.
Well, prior to COVID, there was some changes that occurred with policies that we've all voted on in California that we thought would help, like drug addictions and drug charges reduced from felony to misdemeanors. That had an impact on the bail system where everything was set. So to let people know, and as you know, bail is set off of a penal code. In each county, the judges get together each year and decide each county what the bail schedule is going to be. And a bail schedule was set, not in Los Angeles now, each penal code or charge, vehicle code or health and safety code, you would get a bail amount associated with that, whether it would be a release, like a ticket that you get when you're driving, you still actually have bail.
Right.
You're just not paying it at that moment. And then to a domestic violence charge or a murder charge. In capital offenses, there is no bail. And that's how it was set. Some of the, I think, factors with regards to over the course of the last 10 years, one, when we reduced the felonies for drugs to misdemeanors, a lot of the alternatives for those clients were to go into rehab because they were afraid they were going to do more jail time. But as it became a misdemeanor, it was less jail time, so their ability to get to rehab or their motivation to get to rehab, where some of them actually benefited from the rehab and made good progress, that's not really an option to them as much because the alternative of jail isn't as good.
Right.
I mean, how would I put that?
Their motivation
yes.
for...
Do I go to rehab or do I go to jail?
Right, exactly. Well, I know that I've been practicing for over a decade now, and I've seen big changes in bail and the way it's addressed both with the courts and, with clients, and as far as the bail schedule is changing from a lot of 1170 coming out and felonies being reduced to misdemeanors. And I do believe that the zero bail policy, which of course was voted on by the LA County voters, they may not have known they were voting for it, right? So do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, every policy like that we have, a lot of the times we don't know it's like Pandora's box. So when it was the Superior Court Justice implemented that, and then the superintendent supported the zero bail schedule for Los Angeles, and their DA definitely supported.
Let's talk a little bit about how bail used to work prior to the implementation of LA County's zero bail policy.
So like in Orange County or San Bernardino and the whole state, other than San Francisco city area, bail is set on penal codes or vehicle codes or health and safety codes or business and professional codes. So that there was no discrimination, bail was basically set, a number was set. So a domestic violence is $50,000 bail. The judges of each county set their own bail schedule, and they do that once a year. Most of the time they're pretty close to each other's counties, and they set it also based on the amount of time that you would get in jail is the actual, if you were convicted of that crime, is what the bail amount a lot of the time was set for. Now over the course of the last 10 years it's changed a lot, where we've got a lot of decisions from the state coming down, locally coming down. There was a Humphreys decision where fraud, where there could be somebody that could influence 100 people or 1,000 people in an insurance fraud or mortgage fraud, where they would set the bail based on the amount you stole.
Right.
Or they thought you stole.
Well, I'm glad you brought up Humphreys because I feel like the zero bail policy is directly reflective of Humphreys. So In re Humphreys was a case that came down from the California Supreme Court that stated that basing an individual's ability solely on their ability to post bail was unconstitutional, right?
Correct.
Violation in the U.S. Constitution and the U.S.
State
Constitution and the country. So in response to that, and so we have in res Humphreys, then we have a global pandemic that obviously threw the jail system and the judicial system into a tailspin based on how to deal with that and in custodies. I believe that the zero bail policy was trying to be responsive to that.
Correct.
Right. And then the LA County voters, they voted on it, but they might not have known quite what they voted for.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if they voted for it or if the judge just implemented it. I think the superior judge or the head judge of Los Angeles implemented it themselves. I think the head justice for Los Angeles. I'm not sure, but they did vote for Gascon, which.
Right. From my understanding, and I could be wrong, is that they voted for it.
There was a measure then.
There was a measure, and they did vote for it, and it passed.
Okay.
But then there was the lag time between voting for it and it passing versus the implementation date. So we were only a month out, so exactly a month. It was effective. The zero bail policy became effective October 1st of 2023 this year. We're November 1st today. So I've only been dealing with the zero bail policy for a month, and I wanted us to come in and have a conversation because a lot has happened in a month, and it's been quite a drastic change from the policies before. So do you want to talk a little bit about that and kind of what you've seen from personal experience?
Well, yeah. I mean, just the other day, a mother was arrested, whether she was... I got a call and she couldn't bail out because of the new policies, put it under magistrate review, which is now cases are not, you don't have an option for bail. If a new charge, that penal code or vehicular code goes to magistrate review, you have to wait for a magistrate to review your case while sitting in custody. Well, if you're arrested, she was in there for a day and a half without even the right to bail, and then she was about to go to court for her first arraignment date, and they let her out just prior to that. So there's somebody who sat in custody for 36 hours without the right to bail because of the new policy.
Right.
Now, if we haven't seen anybody get to court, right? Because it just started. They don't have any court days. We haven't seen anybody actually get to court.
Right, because of the lag time. So some people may not know is when you are in custody and you're released prior to your arraignment date, your court date in LA County could be a month and a half, 2 months out before you ever go before a judge. So that's why we're still in the very beginnings of kind of seeing how this is going to shake out. So just for education purposes, now with the zero bail policy, it sounds like what I would assume is that everybody's a book and release because bail doesn't exist anymore, but that's not true. What it really did was it made certain code sections if you get arrested for, you're a book and release, meaning that either you're released on the spot with a citation and you just have a court date to appear and you're going to deal with it. Then bail is always addressed at your arraignment date. So just because you're cited and released does not mean necessarily that once you get to court, you're not going to have bail conditions imposed later. But now, instead of having guidelines that the police can automatically impose as far as bail conditions, now it goes to a magistrate review, which I'm assuming the LA County judges are really impacted by now having to deal with all of the individualized review, because now it's got to there's only so many judges in LA County, and now it's got to go to...
I don't even know how who signs up for that as a judge, right? Are they pulling old judges back onto the bench, meaning at home, and you're just answering phone calls, because are you just dealing with your city of Los Angeles? Or are you dealing with the whole, or Long Beach or Torrance?
Right.
Are you doing the whole county? Is there enough? I won't mention the department, but when I talk to the police officers at the department, they don't even know what to do because of the fact of, if they want to change the bail schedule or ask for a bail, they have to call probation. Then they have to do it in a certain time period, and then they're waiting for the magistrate review to come back. and these people are just sitting there. So they can't even do their job or process through because now granted it's new, but if you're going to introduce something new, you should have probably thought through it. For or against it, that's not what we're dealing with at this point in time.
Right,
but it's
right.
More
We just want to educate people, the public, as well as our fellow colleagues, the criminal defense bar, the prosecution bar, and we're trying to figure this out in real time. What's been going on, right?
Of it is big push for zero bail is what they consider is wealth, right? Mm-hmm. It's against if you don't have the money, you can't get out. Well, there's enough bail bond companies now that are charging 5% and 6% to help you out if there's other family members that'll help you and put you on a $100 payment plan for a month for the duration of the bond. And for some, that's too much. I understand that. That's definite. But what you've done now also is you've taken it completely, and with all the awareness, I should say, or media associated with racism, or that this is affecting more of people of color, or because bail is a money proportion, so they're saying more people of color are getting arrested, so they're getting more affected. Well, now you've put it actually in a judge's hand to set whatever he technically wants on the arraignment, instead of saying this is a penal code amount, this is what it should be set at. Now, what they could have done in Los Angeles is actually just lowered the bail schedule. They could have lowered it to something that people could afford.
Right, made it a little bit less monetarily punitive.
I got in front of the judge and they okayed it. Maybe that's what happened. I don't know.
I'm not sure.
I don't know either. I know that it was a ruling in May. There was a ruling on it, and then implementation came in October.
Oh, really? So I didn't know that.
And then the Superior Court Judge of California, the head one, Supreme Court Judge of California, came to the FLOC, the Filipino Bar Association, and she was giving the speech.
Okay.
And a few of the guys were like, "Aren't you like impressed?" I'm like, "Well, first of all, I'm not an attorney, so I don't. That's not my aspiration to be the judge of California. I get it. But second of all, she was actually the major contributor for Humphrey's passing. That really didn't help me. I was teasing, but
Right.
Yeah. So.
Right. I mean, well, from my perspective, I do believe that Humphreys was a correct decision. I believe that bail, just solely determining bail, is not appropriate. But you having money shouldn't be the only factor in consideration of whether you should be released during the pendency of your criminal proceedings. I wholeheartedly believe that. I love the fact, or I believe it's a step in the right direction, rather, that judges are now considering, Scram bracelets, Scram X, which for those of you who don't know, they're home monitoring system, alcohol monitoring system. So if you're arrested for an alcohol-related charge, you may be put on an alcohol monitoring system to, ensure that you are not consuming alcohol during the pendency of your case, which, you could pose a danger to the public.
Correct.
So I think all those are steps in the right direction. I'm not sure this zero bail policy, it was the answer to our quest for kind of that equality and equalization, and trying to answer, if not leaning so heavily on just your financial ability to be out of custody pending your case, because this is what we have before us with the zero bail policy. Is law enforcement doesn't know their parameters. The judiciary seems to be overwhelmed by it based on the delays of having a magistrate review, like the time periods that it's taking them to conduct a magistrate review. And now our citizens that are being arrested, they don't have the ability to be released whether they want to or not, because now they're presumptively on a no bail hold until they can have a judge review, which those are being extremely delayed.
Correct.
So it's a situation that unfortunately is going to have to unfold a little bit, and I don't know if the public's going to be quite happy with it.
Well, a lot of cities are against it right now. They're thinking of the crimes in the crime waves that have gone on.
Correct. All the smash and grabs that you see on TV, you know.
And those, by the way, they didn't change. You're still booked and released on that.
Correct.
So they didn't, with priors, where it's not like you do it 3 times and then you're going to be held. That didn't set forth like third booking of theft. You now have a magistrate review to look at your case. No, it's still straight book and release.
Right.
So it's interesting. I do wish with Humphreys, I agree with you, Kat, the amount should not be consideration of what, and I do think that it went too far, because you had people showing up for court that get an arraignment letter, they're doing everything they would, and a judge would set bail for something, and they're not prepared when they get to court. Now they're going to jail at that moment in time. I do think, though, the system wasn't even set up for that, in the sense of how many people actually claim I can't pay, and then you actually look at their documentation to show that they can't pay. Nobody really checks. I just can't afford it. I don't, my job only pays this amount. So,
right.
Is it for the family that's making $120,000 a year, but their expenses are $120,000 a year because they have 2 kids and they're trying to have a condo if they're lucky enough? At that, they're not really lucky enough in Southern California, but possibly, and they're barely getting by. Or is it really only for the homeless? And where does that lie? Because
where do you make that delineation
where do you make that
of
correct.
where bail becomes appropriate?
Correct. Because you got a family that you might be supporting, and the judge goes, well, you're making $130,000 a year. Well, yeah, I know, but so where does that come into it? And then there's other cases where bail should be higher. There should be a waiting period where, the first 2 days, I think domestic violence, they should just be on a hold, because a lot of the time they were drunk, they were angry. Now they're more angry because they're in custody. So maybe a cooling period, but that's a different topic.
I actually don't agree with that, and I'll say why. Because I have had so many clients who have come through my doors with domestic violence claims that are unsubstantiated. And not even filed. Because that falls back on the law enforcement policies, the individual law enforcement agencies in the city, at the city level, where if you call, and I don't know if this is general knowledge.
I think they have to arrest somebody.
They have to. It is policy that if you call.
Somebody has a mark, which we've seen, we know they mark themselves. People do it. They'll mark themselves.
Men and women. It
Both.
It goes both ways.
Does.
I've seen it for both. It does. And I don't think people realize, you call a law enforcement agency and you say that, has been domestic violence, somebody's going to jail.
Correct.
And unfortunately, it's abused, where I want to get back at this person, I'm angry at this person has hurt me, whether they want to break up with you or whatever, a situation is, and there's absolutely zero evidence at the end of the day, and that person has an arrest record, they've had to post bail, and it's traumatic. And then a lot of times those cases aren't even filed.
Los Angeles, they're definitely a lot of Los Angeles, Orange County. They're just not filed.
Right.
And it's once the DA looks at the stuff and they go, wait, there's not even a case
not
here.
enough
And
here.
a lot of the time, the spouse or girlfriend or boyfriend, I'm not going to be there to testify because we were just, in an argument and the neighbor called. And we do have we had a guy actually who fortunately had cameras in his house. And he married somebody from a different country, and if you're charged with domestic violence, I'm not 100% sure on the law that the person that you're in the relationship with automatically gets
asylum.
Yes.
Yes.
So fortunately, he had cameras in the house, and she didn't know.
Okay.
So there was no domestic violence. There was
a claim of domestic violence.
And he got arrested, had to pay bail, had to fight it.
Right.
And then whatever happened after that, I don't know. But we only turned the key.
Right. It's a tough job to try to navigate a one size fits all, right? Which is basically what we had before, right? A one size fits all. You get arrested for this crime. This is your presumptive bail, regardless, for anybody, right? Without looking at individual determination. Now we have essentially
Going to the other extreme.
Going to the other extreme where now everybody's an individualized determination, but that comes at a lot of detriment too for a lot of people.
I mean, if you have to sit in custody and you don't even have a right to get out,
right?
You don't even know you don't even know if you're going to get charged, but you're detained until the magistrate decides to review your case. And I don't even know how they review the case. I mean, are they going to go through your criminal history in Los Angeles, or are they going to go through it through Orange County and San Diego, San Francisco, in a different state? Because, as you know, you can have a DUI in Orange County and already have one in LA, but the judge doesn't see it in Orange County for LA at that moment in time.
Right.
It's I don't know how extensive they go. So it's kind of a weird scenario because you are heartfelt for the people that get arrested that can't get out in the past, that it was too expensive, and you know they didn't do it.
Right.
But they come and they can't afford it, and particularly that charge. We've had a lot of them that were astronomical, and later on people change their stories and there's no case at all. But and then you have the people that do commit the crimes that are being released, all the thefts out there under $950 at all the stores and stuff, and then you've got a lot of these stores that don't want to be here anymore.
Right, they're having a hard time staying open in LA County in general because of the shoplifting that's been going on, the smash and grabs, and a lot of people are shutting their doors, going online solely. I've seen a lot of that in the news. The other thing that strikes me about the zero bail policy in particular is the judicial officers, now the onus is on them. There's only so many judicial officers in LA County. So now the onus is on them to not only make arrest determinations of bail for every single person
that is required on the magistrate review. Yes.
Exactly. So now everybody who is flagged as magistrate review, they have to have a magistrate review. That falls on the judges, which is a 365-day a year, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day job, because people are getting arrested all day, all night, every single day of the year.
On top, are we going to actually have any, just got to say it, or is there going to be any oversight on the judges? Because if maybe, just say it's human nature, you know what, I don't like that last name. You know, what's the oversight on the judges? I'm not saying that the judges do that, but I'm just saying human nature. Is there any oversight to review those cases at that point in time that they held these many people longer than they held those many people?
Right.
With the same charge.
Right.
Again, it just opens up such a ball of wax, I think.
And, you know, maybe you get a judge who is looking very deeply into these. Maybe there's a judge who is not looking so deeply into these. There is a lot of human error that can happen. And what I see is you just threw a big job on these judicial officers, and we didn't add judicial officers to LA County.
Not to LA County.
Not to LA County. So
now you're working your 8 to 5 o'clock job, and now who's taking the on-call jobs at nighttime for
right, and you still have your calendar every day and your courtroom to run. And so what is this going to do in the coming months and years for the bench? I think you're putting a lot of stress on the bench. I would be interested to hear, you know, the judicial council.
I did call the superintendents. Nobody got back to me and asked how many magistrates do we have dedicated to this. And nobody responded. I called a couple of people at the different people in the judicial, the superintendents of Los Angeles. So, and since I don't live in any of their sections, I don't really have, I said to say, enough credibility to ask them, hey, how many magistrates do you have for your territory,
right,
or your section at this point in time?
And
nobody's gotten back to me. No,
nobody
at the front desk knows it. Nobody second level knows it. I don't think they know it at that point in time.
Okay.
I don't know. But I mean, some of the things we do move in the right direction, but it's kind of like they need to. The idea's right, but philosophically it can be right. But I don't think implementation of it, we'll just have to see. But it's the same thing with, anybody can now, you have a right to request a public defender, but you really don't have to show any financial records. You have a right now to claim Humphreys, and you don't have to show any financial records at that point in time. Mm-hmm. It's just a promise, no, I can't afford this. Can I have my bail reduced? Mm-hmm. But again, that's up to the individual judge at that point in time to determine if he thinks that you can or cannot do that. So what I wear into court or don't wear into court, if I'm coming from jail, it doesn't really matter at that point in time. Mm-hmm. But with the zero bail law in Los Angeles, there was a big article in Los Angeles or Orange County Register about how zero bail is doing wonderfully. There's no crimes committed again by anybody. I go, it's 3 weeks, 4 weeks. How do you even know at that point in time? And how many of those people showed up to court?
Right. They probably haven't even had their court date yet.
Or in that one case, was the mother ever actually allowed to return home, right? She was away from home in jail. Did she lose her job? Did she keep her job? Mm-hmm. Because magistrate review took so long where she would have been out in 8 hours. Granted, it would have cost her $3,500 to get out at 7% of whatever the bail is. Some are lower, some are higher, depending upon the bond company. Mm-hmm. But at least she would have been home.
Right.
And if she had to go to work the next day, and her work might have been tedious on whether she shows up or not, what does she tell her boss? I was arrested?
Right. Mm-hmm.
I mean, that doesn't always look good either.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. We're going to have to see how this all shakes out.
It'll be interesting.
It'll be interesting. Oh, so another thing that I kind of just really quick wanted to point out, I think one of my struggles with zero bail policy is the lack of attention to detail, I would say, because, and I think that this is where the public is not liking the
Correct.
Zero, but, or at least, from you can find people on both sides of any argument, right? Of course. But from what I see, especially with the news articles about the smash and grabs, those are all book and release, right? And when we're talking about, it's like petty, what's now considered petty theft.
Anything under $950.
Exactly. Is petty theft. So all those people are just cited out, no bail. They don't need to post any bail whatsoever during the pendency of their case, right? And now they're misdemeanors, right? There's charges on the zero bail policy now that you would assume would still require magistrate review that are now book and release. Like, for example, hit and run with personal injury, that is a book and release now. Whereas before it was $50,000 bail. So there's some serious crimes on here that are book and release now. There are some crimes that I would assume don't particularly need a magistrate review, but now are flagged as magistrate reviews. And I believe, which is now going to be requiring people to stay in custody for a protracted period of time before a magistrate gets to them in order to make a bail determination. So now those people are stuck in custody.
I mean, they could have done just give people an option. Mm-hmm. Right? If you want to post bail, this is what your bail is. If you want to wait for the magistrate to review your case, let the magistrate review your case. Mm-hmm. If you want to wait for arraignment to the first court date, wait for arraignment to the first court date. But at least give them an option that I can get a loved one out of custody as quickly as possible if I need to. Mm-hmm. That might have been a better option. The federal option is interesting, but at least have an option for. Now they don't have an option.
Right.
If it's magistrate review, you got to wait.
Right.
And if you're at Twin Towers and your son or daughter is in a place like that, I mean, the daughters won't go there, they'll go to Linwood, but if they're at Twin Towers, I'm thinking I want to get my kid out of there as quick as possible if it's something that I think is defensible or so forth, instead of put it under a magistrate review and let him sit there for however long it takes.
Right. Exactly.
And if it's a Friday or Thursday, they don't get seen till Monday. So if you get a magistrate review over the weekend and it says, well, you got to go to your arraignment, you still don't get the chance to bail out.
Correct.
That's what nobody's thinking about.
There's a lot of Monday holidays.
There-
Court holidays.
That's true,
So
too.
do not get arrested
On a Thursday.
On a Thursday. Prior to a Monday holiday, because now you're staying in there till the Tuesday.
Automatically.
Automatically. No chance for bail.
So those are the things that are concerning at that point. in time.
Right. So this zero bail policy has so many finite details and so many intricacies, right? I mean, and I like we were saying, we had a one size fits all, and now we have a basically customized, tailored to everybody individual. I have yet to hear too of what this magistrate review exactly comprises of. Like, what are their parameters? What are their guidelines?
Is it flight risk? If it is it past crimes? Are you running them through the Department of Justice to really go through all their past crimes, or is it just local in your county or courthouse?
Right.
area?
And then, like you said, what's the oversight on how detailed
One
these
person is
reviews are?
compared to the other one.
Correct.
There's no, somebody's going to be tired at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Right. And then, I mean, are these judges doing this at 2 o'clock in the morning and then taking the bench at 8:30?
Or are they doing it at 6 o'clock before we haven't seen a list. We haven't seen anything that laid out, and the courts haven't put it out, at least that I've found.
Because I can't imagine being on the night shift as a judicial officer, going through all the arrests and making arrest determinations, and then taking the bench in my courtroom at 8:30 in the morning.
No, considering I had to my job was that all day long.
Right.
And then what's the pay for that? Are you working double time?
Exactly.
I
I don't know.
For the phone call, is the county paying for it? For the Scram bracelets and the, what people don't realize too, so in LA County for Scram or home confinement, the county pays for it, right? I think Scram, I'm not sure 100%. So in Orange County, the defendant pays for that Scram bracelet. So sometimes I don't have the money to pay a private company Scram bracelet of $450 a month.
Correct.
Even though the judge may order it.
Right.
I can only post the bail of maybe it's $20,000. I can afford $160 a month for 10 months, but I can't afford $450 a month. In LA County, if the county is running it and paying for it, who's paying for that? So my tax dollars, if I'm a good law-abiding citizen, is paying for that. Now, is that any difference than if they sat in custody? No, I'm paying more for them being in custody. But if they had a choice of bail instead of that condition,
Right.
now I'm not paying for their mistake as a citizen of Los Angeles. They're paying for, unfortunately, a lot of the time they are innocent, unfortunately, and somehow it got there. But with a Scram bracelet, it's a DUI. There's circumstances associated with it if they blew and blood and everything, timing and so forth, that you end up getting
Litigating,
to.
yes.
But if they were forced to do Scram and the county pays for it, then that means the citizens that had nothing to do with it are paying for that $350 a month contract with the private Scram company that the county has.
And I think, like you said earlier, from my perspective of clients, let's just take a DUI client, right? I feel, my clients, I would like for them to have choices.
Yeah.
Because it's not a one size fits all. If we were litigating this case because this is a case that needs to go to trial because it's something that shouldn't have been filed anyway, that person probably wants bail. Because they don't want a Scram bracelet, because they don't fall into the category of clients of mine who we are going to be more leaning towards resolving their case because they understand that it's not a triable issue. They understand that, that conviction is very likely. Maybe they understand that they do have an alcohol program. Those are my clients who should have a Scram bracelet. Those are people who it'll be beneficial. But if this is a case that shouldn't have been filed by the DA's office, it's something that needs to go to trial because it is we have triable issues. Presumption of innocence. My client, did not do what they said, what they're being charged of. Putting that person on a Scram bracelet makes them angry. They don't want to do it, right?
Right.
Like how are you being
I
falsely
can't go to a
accused?
party in Christmas and have a drink of alcohol because,
Right.
and not even that, but that could be, and I didn't commit the crime.
Right, and you're falsely accused of a DUI, and now you're being told by a judge that the only way for you to be out of custody while have your right to litigate your case is to be on a Scram X bracelet.
Which technically means you're in custody.
Right.
So you're actually doing time on something that you're not, and you're paying for. Or
Exactly.
in LA, the people of LA are paying for.
Yeah, those are not easy things to be on, and you're walking around. It's like a
Everybody knows.
It's a scarlet letter. You've got that that ankle monitor. It's a big hunkin' thing, right? And it's very intrusive,
Yeah.
right? So I think for the people who can't afford bail, right? I mean, with payment plans, through you, options, right? Because I do believe wholeheartedly that this zero bail policy came from a good place. It came from wanting to look at alternatives to just monetary, looking at somebody's financial ability to pay. But I don't think that we're at a solution.
No, and I would 100% agree until yeah, and maybe they'll add bail back in and give this option. But it's for them to determine it. Government moves a little bit slow, so we'll see what happens.
Okay.
Sometimes they accept things, but it's, yeah, I think you put it right on put the nail on the head there.
Right. Okay. Real quick before we go, can you just walk us through a case that you've had or client that you've had recently in LA County, and kind of how that process has gone for you? Just kind of give a real life example.
As I said, that mom, she got in an argument with her daughter. I think her daughter called the police. I don't know. I don't even think anything happened. I don't even know if the case got filed. But she ended up getting arrested. I can't tell you the city because then the department's involved at that point in time. Her sister called me and said, hey, can you help? I go, yes, and not a problem. I didn't know it had been implemented so quickly. I mean, I knew it was October 1st, but usually it takes a little bit of time. And she goes, yeah, I talked to another bondsman, and she says they're holding her. I go, for this charge? I go, so I called, and I said to the actual police officer, I said, what do you mean they're holding? Yeah, it's under magistrate review. I go, what, for 16, 18 hours? What are you talking about? And she goes, yeah, we're not liking it either. She was very upset. I go, well, oof, this just made your job harder because you can't even, and she goes, yeah. It completely sucks. I mean, literally, that was just right out of her mouth. And she goes, it also really sucks for you, too. And I go, it does, because I can't do my job.
Right.
Family can't do their job. And then just before the court date, that night, she was let go. And she wasn't even given a court date. She got no paperwork from the jail. She got, or from the police department of when she might have court. So she's going to wait for an arraignment letter, probably sometime down the road, or the case won't even be filed. But nobody knew. The magistrate review doesn't tell you if the case is going to be filed or not. So now you have to trust the system to send you the arraignment letter. You get the arraignment letter, and then show up to your new court date without getting a warrant issued for you.
And you better make sure your address is updated with DMV. Because
Absolutely.
if your address is not updated, then that arraignment letter is going somewhere else that you don't ever know about.
And if you do get that case and it's an arraignment letter and it's that charge for child endangerment, odds are you're probably still going to need bail depending upon the judge you end up in front of.
Correct.
Or you go right back into custody. So, but the people don't know that either.
Right.
Unfortunately.
Right, because we're just delaying the bail determination until your arraignment date.
Correct.
Right. It's not that it goes away forever. Right.
And you've got a lot of judges that are going to wait. This deserves bail. This doesn't at arraignment. And if it's child endangerment, they're going to set it.
Right.
In this particular case, I hope that it's not filed. Probably just an argument between a daughter and mother. I don't know. That's just the sister's version.
Right.
But.
Right. And then I just thought about this right now, but if you're holding people for several days, now the jails are
Going to be more overcrowded.
More overcrowded and providing meals. And, whereas this individual may have bailed out, but now they're on the hook for 3 meals a day for several days. And, that straps the police departments and, you know, the cities and paying for that.
Yeah. So it does, I mean, I think their heart was in the right spot. I do think that we have imbalances, of course, and, you know, but it's not just for bail. It's for education. It's for, you know, you know, one public school district may be amazing, the next one may be not so amazing, depending upon where you live.
Right.
A lot of the time. So it is unfortunate, but I mean, it seems, as you said, the heart's in the right spot. Just they forgot the other option.
Right. Exactly. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you for talking with us today. And do you want to let everybody know your information as far as Goodman?
If you do get arrested or a loved one gets arrested, Goodman Bail Bonds. And my phone number is 949-228-0365.
Okay, perfect. All right, thank you so much for coming in and talking with me and, you know, giving us all a little bit more insight on zero bail policy.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Appreciate it.